Okay, so the next movie I'm gonna watch is a little bit particular because although it is a futurist film in context, there's nothing futurist about it, or not much futurist about it shown during the film. So I'm gonna be watching a kid story, which is also part of the Animatrix. And yeah, these movies are really convenient for the kind of commentary that I want to do because they're really short, so I can watch them and comment on them as I watch them, and you guys can see the video, and it doesn't take 2 hours, right? It's not 2 hours of commentary. Um, Also, as I mentioned before, these movies are, part of like, the bigger arcing story of the Matrix, which the Matrix films use a lot more exposition and dialogue, to tell the story, but these short films, you know, assume that the audience is already familiar with that story, so they don't explain a lot. They use a lot of imagery, which is really really cool. Okay, so let's watch this. So yeah, so as I was saying, there's not too much actual futurism in it, but what it does do is capture what it does that's special is that it captures some of the special like the zeitgeist of our time, right? It's very very postmodern. Like, what is the truth? How do we know what's real is real and it's not a dream? What else? I mean, it's just, and it also has to do with the more that humans kind of connect and interact with things that are digital. Like even right now you're interacting with this website that's digital, and it's not real in the sense that it's physical, but it's a real thing in the sense that, well, a website is a real thing. Nobody would say, or websites don't actually exist. They do exist, but they don't exist in 3D meat world. They exist in virtual space. Um, so the more that humans interact with these virtual spaces, the more that we can begin to question, like, what qualifies as real, what qualifies as fake, how, right? What is the difference between something digital and something made out of meat, right? Um, I think this has a lot to do with the way we think of reality now and the way we might think of reality in the future. So, I mean, what if, right? The question of the Matrix is like, what if this world wasn't really, this world isn't really what we think it is, right? It's actually just all a digital, construct or whatever. Um, right? How do we know? How would we know that it was real? We wouldn't. We wouldn't really know. Um, so yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, in the future, um, right? There's gonna be even more of a blurring of this boundary between what's real and what's digital, and what's human and what's natural and what's not natural, um, and what's the truth, right? So what's the truth, right? And there's one piece of dialogue in this movie that I'll point out, which is when Neo replies to the kid in the story, I forget his name. He says, "There's some truth in your fiction and some fiction in your truth," and that, I think, captures a lot of the way we're starting to think about truth, at least in our postmodern time period. Right? There's some truth in our fiction and some fiction in our truth. So that's really interesting. Okay, so now I'm gonna start watching the movie. Yeah. Enjoy the show. Alright, so the first thing we see is the shape of like a falling figure. It looks like a bird. You hear bird noises in the background, and this definitely looks like a bird. But then it cuts like a split-second cut to the kid in the story falling through the air. So he's plummeting through the air, and we can't tell if the bird was, the shape of the bird, this falling shape in the sky was a bird, or if it was the kid falling, right? The shapes look similar. So the kid's falling through, right, through the air, and it's all very tranquil and peaceful. The music also kind of gives off that vibe of peace and tranquility. Then we see, you know, we see another scene of these birds flying off of a fence. We can't tell what kind of birds they are right away, but we see these birds flying off of a fence. You know, not to, like the fence is one of those, you know, one of those schools like netted fences. They're all interconnected like that. Maybe this is a long shot, but the fence could be like the Matrix, and the birds flying off of the fence could be, um, you know, people like leaving the Matrix, right? Flying is associated with freedom, and birds are also associated with freedom. So that's one idea. So we see the birds flying off of the fence, and we see the kid falling again. And you know, he's not afraid. He's just very peaceful. He's falling through the air. He's about to hit the ground, and boom, he wakes up, right? Which is kind of like one thing the Matrix does is that it talks about regular things that we all experience that we don't really have good explanations for. For example, like, you know, how come everybody has that dream where they're falling and then right before they hit the ground, boom, they wake up, right? Maybe there is some kind of explanation, but right, basically they're suggesting that this kind of experience, this kind of feeling, is a side effect of, you know, being wired, being hooked up to the Matrix, which is pretty cool. They also do this with like deja vu. In one of the Matrix movies, they talk about how deja vu happens when something's been changed in the Matrix. So that's also interesting. All right, so we see the kid wake up, and you know, he wakes up from his dream. He's in this, you know, like twilight lit bedroom. He gets on his computer and he starts typing away. So he's typing into like the black and green, you know, this black and green window. It's not it's, you know, it's one of those, like, I don't know how to say it, but it's definitely not like a regular website or program that's like user friendly with buttons and stuff. This is like that old school hardcore programmer, you know, black and green input window, right? Which kind of show, it's kind of, and now and in our time at least, we associate this with like hacking and like, you know, using the internet to kind of, you know, not like in a non-conformist fashion, right? So this kid is not using like the user-friendly, everyday kind of software, kind of you know, internet interface, right? So he's not using like this user-friendly interface. He's using something that takes more knowledge and skill, and he's well, it's kind of, it connects to like this idea of hacker culture and like, you know, insubordination and disconformity or unconformity, right? So this kid is not an everyday, you know, person, right? He's connected, just like Neo was in the original movies. Neo was some, you know, awesome hacker or whatever, and the idea being that these people who are kind of outside of, who don't conform, are more likely to kind of notice that there's something up with the Matrix, right? To notice that there's something that feels unreal about the Matrix. So the kid is typing away on his computer keyboard, and he's just in front of the glowing light of the monitor, and you know, the monitor starts to talk back, right? And it's Neo responding to the kid. The kid's question is, somebody tell me why it feels more real when I dream than when I'm awake. How can I know if my senses are lying? And Neo responds with, there's some truth in your fiction and some fiction in your truth, or vice versa, whichever, right? We see the kid like in front of the glow of the computer screen, and that's a powerful, that's an image that, you know, recalls, I mean, a lot of what we do, what our life has become in the last 10-20 years. You know, people spend, you know, hours and hours in front of computer screens interacting with the digital world, and that's what I was referring to before, is kind of blurring of worlds, like, right, of, you know, things that are physical and things that are not physical. Like, there's still part of us that kind of regards things inside of a computer screen as not real, and, you know, when compared to something outside of a computer screen. But we spend so much time in this world that could be considered not real because it's not physical. We spend so much time interacting with these digital objects that I think little by little we're becoming to accept them as, you know, like well, we stop thinking about them as not real and real, right? You know, just like I don't think anybody would say a website is not real, right? Because it's not physical. So, right, so this kid sitting in front of the glowing computer screen, interacting with the digital world, you know, kind of in this kind of in between zone, in between, like, if anything, the screen is like a border between the meat world and digital world, and you know this kid is on the border of meat world and digital world, and you know he's about to break through. He's already noticing that something's up, and things are changing, and Neo's talking to him. To know the truth, you must risk everything. Neo tells him, and then the kid asks, "Who are you? Am I alone?" Right. So that's also kind of a question that reflects a little bit of like the zeitgeist of our time. People are more individualistic, even if we're part of society, even if, you know, we could be, you know, what's the expression? Like lonely in a crowded room, or, you know, alone in a crowded room. People are starting to question what's going on outside their heads. You know, just because you see it in front of you and you can feel it and you can touch it doesn't mean that it's necessarily real. So, I mean, is he alone, right? We see this kid, he has a family, he goes to school, he has an everyday life, but he still wonders if he's alone, right? So he's having his breakfast, eating some toast, and this is the point where we start to notice that the animation is really, really interesting, because the background and the surroundings, like the backgrounds are animated in, I guess, a more traditional fashion. Everything's very stable. It's like defined lines, and it looks very realistic, like really realistically drawn background. But the people are made up of lines that are like squiggly and wiggling around, and you know the lines kind of like appear and disappear, and it's almost like a very unstable animation style. Like the people are there, but they're not there, and when they move, it's like they're blurring away. And then we see the kid's on his skateboard, you know, skateboarding on the street. He's definitely got like a skateboarder outfit on, and you know, just the skateboard also has like a lot of meaning in regards to like counterculture and subculture and nonconformity. Well, I mean, obviously in recent years it's become more and more mainstream, but skateboarding originally was very underground, very counterculture kind of activity. And I think it still has that meaning of, you know, rebellion a little bit, right? Rebellion and nonconformity. There we go, nonconformity. That's what I wanted to say before. Anyway, so he's skateboarding to school. There's a song playing. I think the lyric says, "Am I?" I'm not sure. The lyrics say, "Am I?" I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not gonna pay attention to the song, even though it might be interesting. Right, we see the kid's locker. He puts the skateboard away in his locker, locks it, closes it, and he's got this white locker with a blue dragon painted on it. The blue dragon is kind of facing that way, so it's hard to notice. I don't know what the dragon's all about, but his locker is the only white locker, right? Which is again kind of pointing out, you know, that idea that this kid is not like the other kids, right? He doesn't really quite fit in, right? Even his locker stands out among the other lockers, so that's interesting. And then we see, you know, as the teacher's writing on the blackboard, and you know, the teacher is like a symbol of authority. He's writing on the blackboard, but you know, our kid, he's not paying attention to what's on the blackboard. He's scribbling on his notepad, and you know, pretty much by like not paying attention to the professor, and doing the same thing, right? It shows like it cuts back and forth between the professor writing on the blackboard and the kid writing on his notebook. He's again, it's kind of like juxtaposition of like authority and rebellion, right? The kid representing like a rebellious attitude, kind of nonconformity, and the teacher representing authority. and, you know, conformity, right? So that's interesting. And we see the classroom, you know, everyone's just there kind of accepting, right? You know, classrooms are really interesting too, because I mean, I guess one of the problems of education now is that it's a very passive system, you know, where students are just receptacles of information, and the teacher just kind of dictates what is right and what is wrong. And this is very matrix-like, right? So the classroom can be like a small, you know, you know, like a microcosm of the matrix or something. Maybe not, but whatever. I think it's interesting. Sure. Okay, cool. So the kid wants to. He's writing on his notebook, and then his cell phone goes off. His cell phone goes off in class, right? And if you're familiar with the matrix, right, we contact each other through phones. I'm not gonna go into the phone because I don't care. But I want to put the volume up, but I can't. So the phone goes off in class, and then the kid turns it off. Oh, whack. Right, I just put the volume up. Okay, so the kid turns it off, but it starts ringing again, right? So now the teacher's upset, or more upset. And yeah, all the people are like just drawn in like this weird fuzzy style, but the backgrounds are very solid. And we don't get a good look of anyone else's faces. We don't really get a good look at the faces of the other students. You know, they're just another face in the crowd, so to speak, right? So they're all just kind of blend in. Everyone else is just blending in, but this one, you know, kid that sticks out, he sees things differently, right? So he picks up the phone, and Neo tells him, "They know you know. They're coming for you. Get out." Right. So we have the agents, right, which is like ultra conformist. You know, black suit, black tie, you know, black sunglasses, just almost identical, right? The agents, and the ultimate symbol of authority in the Matrix, right? This is the authority of the Matrix in action, trying to keep people who are, you know, in danger of seeing through the Matrix, of waking up from the Matrix, and trying to bring them back into sleep. So now the kid he sees the agents coming for him. He runs out to his locker, grabs his skateboard, and runs out. Not to mention that he runs out of the classroom through the window and not through the door. So everything this kid does is, you know, nonconformist, which is cool. And as he's using his skateboard to get away from the right, and again, the skateboard is also another symbol of nonconformity, to get away from so he's getting away from the agents with the skateboard, and as he's doing so, the animation becomes really, really trippy. He's just like, it looks like he's melting like right through the air, and there's some times where we could see right through him, like there's parts of him where they're just practically see-through. Then there's this image of people, agents outside the school running to go get him, but they're drawn so weird. They're not even like chasing him, and they're running backwards. There's one scene where like 3 of them are running backwards, and they're just kind of like flailing their limbs around, which kind of adds a sense of urgency, but it doesn't make any sense. It's just kind of adds to like how surreal like their existence is, and the people are also drawn like in a really funny way. So it just kind of, like, everything seems like it's there, but it's not there. It's all very unstable, and this could be, you know, a depiction of the kid waking up from the Matrix, or just kind of showing how everything is not what it seems to be, or it's not what it is. It's always fluid, it's always changing, it's always taking new shapes and forms, so that, you know, that is to say that nothing is, and if nothing is, then there's no truth, right? So the kid's still using his skateboard, and now he's cornered by the agents. He's cornered. He runs into the girls' bathroom, right? So that's another sign, right? Oh boy, going into the girls' bathroom. That's another, you know, another way to demonstrate, you know, that this kid's not following the rules. He's not conforming. He's he's in the girls' bathroom, right? And when we get into the girls' bathroom, we see that it's graffiti everywhere. It's like a really disgusting bathroom. I guess I don't go into girls' bathrooms too often, but not what you would expect, right? Not what you would expect from the girls' bathroom. It looks like a boys' bathroom, but I don't know. I don't really spend too much time in girls' bathrooms. Um, so he's a boy who goes into the girls' bathroom to escape from the agents, and then he climbs out the window. This is how he makes his getaway, right? By breaking all the rules, skateboarding on the hallway, getting into the girls' bathroom, climbing out the window, and when he gets to the window, he uses a pole to climb up to the top of the building, which is also something that kind of goes against what you would expect. You would expect him to, climb down, but no, he climbs up to the top, and I think at this point he already knows what he's gonna do. He knows he's gonna jump off, so he grabs hold of the bars, and we see that right now his animation is really unstable. Like he's like, there's parts of him that are like not even connected to him at times. Like you can almost see through him. So it's really interesting. He gets up to the top of the ledge, and the agents have him cornered, and almost right away he leans back. He's about to jump off, and he says, "Neo, I believe. I know it wasn't a dream," right? So this kid has no hesitation. It seemed like from the moment, where he started climbing up the pole, he knew that he was gonna jump off and kill himself, because there's no point in time of this short film where he stops and thinks like, oh, there's nothing to do, I have to kill myself. No, it's just like he gets up to the top of the ledge and boom, he's ready to jump. So he just lets himself fall off the building, and he's plummeting through the air. Boom! Once again, we see the birds, right? And these are the birds flying off the fence, right? And these birds are black. They might be crows. I think they're crows. If they are crows, then crows are like a symbol of death, right? So then these birds, a bird just by itself can be a symbol of freedom. Crows can be a symbol of death. The kid is, committing suicide, and in this way he's gaining his freedom from the Matrix through death. And as he flies through the air, we know that he's about to free himself from the Matrix. And then boom, once again we see that weird shape that we saw in the beginning. It's a shape that looks like a bird, but it could also be the kid. We don't know. It's a really weird shape. And there we go. He's falling, about to hit the ground. Boom. This time he wakes up, but he doesn't wake up in his bed. He wakes up in the ship, the Nebuchadnezzar. He's awake from the Matrix. Interesting. But before that we see a shot of a whatchamacallit, of a cemetery. And they're talking about how the kid has a mental delusion and he's unbalanced, and we get unbalanced kids like this all the time. So this is like this. When we're looking at the graveyard, the dialogue says, "This world is not real, and the real world is somewhere else." And then the other guy says, "A typical mental delusion," right? So this kind of that's another thing, right? That's another kind of point of zeitgeist where a lot of people are now considering. This is actually maybe the minority of people, but some people are considering why we value sanity over insanity, and why we value logical, Western metaphysical thinking over, I guess, more irrational, more kind of, postmodern thinking. Not that postmodern thinking is irrational necessarily, but it does, right? I mean, by saying that there's no truth, it does kind of undermine any kind of sense of rationality. So in this case, the people are looking down on the kid's grave, and there's supposed to be some kind of mental delusion of someone who's unstable, right? And this is kind of the valorizing, or valuing like sanity over insanity. But in reality, we know that what these people consider insanity is actually what allowed the kid to escape from the Matrix and wake up in the real world, right? So, right, the real world, this world is not the real world, and the real world is somewhere else. That kind of thinking is not appreciated in our society, because it'll lead to us waking from the Matrix, and that's not what the Matrix wants, right? Reality can be pretty scary for some thinking. Right? It's cold in my reality. It's literally cold in my reality. It's freezing here. But I'm not putting the heater on because I care about the environment. The environment inside my wallet. And heating is expensive. So the kid wakes up in the Nebuchadnezzar, and Neo has already rescued him. And we see that he has no hair, right? He, like, when people are kind of awake from the Matrix, they don't have any hair or anything. They look like full-grown babies, you know, which is kind of like representative of like them being, you know, pretty much born into the real world for the first time, awaking into the real world for the first time. And then we see another cut. It cuts to the scene of a computer screen, and the answer is you are not alone, right? You're not alone. Great. So that's the movie. You are not alone. What does that mean? I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it. Okay, so that's it for this film's commentary. Yeah, so definitely a lot of the imagery kind of, I think, captures the postmodern zeitgeist of our era, and yeah, I think it's interesting. I won't summarize it. I think it's pretty, if you just watch the video, I think it's pretty clear. There's a lot of symbolism. Okay, I'm gonna start summarizing. There's a lot of symbolism, as you know, referring to kind of like insubordination and questioning of truth and reality and questioning of authority, and you know, just when we question authority, we question what's real, and we question, you know, the way of thinking. We question the way, you know, the way we do things. And this kid kind of breaks all the rules and really just does not conform to anything, and this leads him to awaken from the Matrix and awaken, you know, become aware of the real world, right? Because the real world's out there somewhere else, maybe. So yeah, I think that the film portrays this very well through like the imagery and stuff. And I'm starting to get sleepy because it's 12. All right, so that's it for today's vlog. Bye bye.